everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Pod Return to the Waking Sands, a weekly journey through the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. I am Jen, and I am joined by my co-host and researcher.
I'm Levi.
Hi, Levi.
Hello, Jen.
Hello, why is your voice so deep?
This is my intro voice.
Oh, I see. That's very special. Thank you for showing up.
I ease us into the episode.
It's very
episode
serious.
About Thaumaturges. Thaumaturge, as far as I know, is a class that was created for Final Fantasy XIV specifically as the starting class for the future aspiring Black Mage. In this game, Thaumaturges wield a staff. They can also use a scepter and shield, but as the game goes on, they phase out the scepter and shield option, so really staff is the only option.
Yeah, you get a one-handed staff and a shield at like level 10 or something. And it looks really weird as a Thaumaturge / Black Mage.
You can see little baby Thaumaturges and Conjurers running around with that shield that's like a bunch of planks nailed together.
It's very rudimentary. I mean, you have a nice staff that is made probably by a very skilled carpenter or a goldsmith or a blacksmith. And then you have this 5th grade attempt at... Nah, 5th grader I think would be a lot better at it. It's a bunch of planks just zip tied together, and that's your shield.
It would be an interesting build option if you were like, okay, so I want to have extra defense with the shield, or I want to have extra offense with like the two-handed staff. But ultimately, in group content, your Thaumaturge / Black Mage should never be being attacked directly.
That's it. Yeah, it's confusing. In the beginning, it's all about making sure that you are away. If you think you're going to be overwhelmed in battle, run. Don't try to take on too many enemies at once. Flee, remain hidden. It's all about being offensive with your defense, and not necessarily. It's not until the very end of the quest line that they actually embrace the fact that they're just conjurers of immense destructive force.
You mean Thaumaturges of immense destructive force, not to be confused with the Conjurer class.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yes.
So to understand Thaumaturgy in this game, we'll have to talk about the elements.
Some of them, yeah.
Well, yes, they only wield half of them, but also may as well talk about all of them if we're talking about some of them.
Sure.
So welcome to our elements section here.
Yay.
In the world of Final Fantasy XIV, there are 6 elements. They are fire, water, earth, wind, lightning, and ice. And the Thaumaturge wields half of these, fire, ice, and lightning. However, though, as an extra complicating factor, there are also 2 aspects to each element. There is astral and umbral.
When do you get your little gauge that tracks umbral versus astral? Immediately?
Well, it tracks umbral ice versus astral fire, to be more specific.
No, because astral is always associated with fire. Umbral is always associated with ice.
For the Thaumaturge.
Yes. And lightning isn't tracked on your gauge.
Correct. But you get that ASAP. I'm pretty sure level 1, you roll out the door and have these elements, which you don't know what they mean yet when you see them. But you can see when you cast fire spells that you begin to take up the little fire crystals on your gauge. And same thing for ice. Yes.
Fire is more potent, but it is more expensive.
The astral aspect denotes activity and volatility. So astrally charged fire would be burning, whereas umbral denotes passiveness and stillness. Umbrally charged fire would be dry desert air, for instance. That would be an umbral effect, where it's not actually, spreading or consuming things, but it's still present. The desert is charged in umbral fire either.
Too much of one would result in total stillness.
Correct. And some elements lean naturally towards one or the other aspects. For instance, the Thaumaturge relies heavily on umbral ice and astral fire.
So, I mean, that's your bread and butter as a Thaumaturge, as a Black Mage, is managing the back and forth between fire and ice. But fire is the most damage, but it's the most expensive.
In terms of MP.
Right.
Which is magic points?
Sure. Mana points. And then ice is that replenishes your MP, but they're slightly less powerful.
It's a cycle of activity and rest, essentially, where when you are fire aspected, you're going to burn, and deal that big damage. But then you burn yourself out and you run yourself dry, and you have to switch to umbral ice to recover your MP.
Yeah. And you try to run through your ice phase as quickly as possible so that you just can jump back into fire. That's basically like you fire as long as possible and you exhaust every skill that you have in order to keep that fire train going as long as possible. And then for just a perfunctory amount of time, you get ice, get your MP back, and it's back to fire.
The Thaumaturge and Black Mage classes are probably the most complex class in the game because you have to manage your elements, your MP, and most spells have long cast times, which means you need to make sure that you're in a safe place for long enough to finish casting your spell. Otherwise, you'll have to interrupt your own cast and reposition yourself to not get stomped by some attack.
Yeah, it is not a mobile class. It's very complex and trying to maximize all of your skills.
Every 10 to 20 levels, the class kind of reinvents itself with new mechanics being added.
This is so true. And I'm saying this I chose Black Mage as my very first job. First job in an MMO at all, first job in Final Fantasy at all. I'm like, this sounds really cool. Of course it sounds cool. That's how they get you.
Periodically, you'll get a brand new mechanic that you unlock as you level up, and that will give you a whole new way to use your elements, or a new mechanic to extend your fire phase, or whatever, and that'll upset your whole deal and make you have to refigure out the optimal way to execute your spells before you shift back to the ice phase.
Yeah, every single time you get a new, not every single time, but it seems like it. You get a new skill, and now you've got to shuffle around your hotbar, and you have to reimagine your rotation to try to figure out how does this fit in? Does it need to fit in?
Story-wise, in Final Fantasy XIV, Thaumaturges are integral to Ul'dah and its history. We recall that the descendants of the Vakian Black Mages were the ones to divine water at the deserts of Thanalan and found Baladia. Because of black magic's role in the calamity of that era, Black Mages went underground and integrated themselves into the worship of one of the 12, and so Thaumaturgy was born. Jen, after having done research for this episode here, I think I found a misprint in the Encyclopedia Eorzea.
No.
And that resulted in a misreporting on our part on our Ul'dah episode.
Oh, for shame.
So when we were talking about Ul'dah's founding earlier, the word was that the Black Mages integrated themselves into the worship of Azema as a way to revive the use of black magic in a socially acceptable way. However, everything I found for this episode suggests actually that the Order of Nald'thal was the religion that they integrated themselves into. So I think that the encyclopedia has a misprint there, and it is actually the priesthood of Nald'thal that adopted black magic into its practice. And we can see even today that the Thaumaturges and the Nald'thal priests are thoroughly enmeshed with one another. And there is no sign whatsoever of Azema.
Yep, definitely. Especially because the way they legitimized black magic or thaumaturgy back in the day was by using it for burial rites, to cleanse the dead, to prepare the dead for the afterlife. So the arcane magics used in the preparation of the dead were Blizzard, and this is directly from the Guild Receptionist. Blizzard to halt corruption, fire to cleanse the corpse, and lightning to expel the sins of mortal life. That seems very nice. I mean, violent, but very nice.
I don't think they torch the entire corpse, right? They're clean.
I mean, they can, I'm dead. I don't care. Go nuts.
I'm sure their family may care if they receive a burnt pile of ashes when they're expecting a preserved body for their crypt. Maybe,
but I would expect a high level black mage to know how to pull their punch. I want big visual effects at my funeral. If they can handle that and not burn me to a crisp at the same time, I'm pretty sure they can handle that.
It'd be a thaumaturge, though. Black magic is outlawed. Let's not forget.
Oops. Yep. Just kidding. I meant
also,
thaumaturgy.
As you level up, your spells get bigger, I think, not smaller. So you might want a low-level
It's very visually impressive.
in your funeral.
It's so cool.
We also see that same receptionist, she really does not try and keep this secret. You walk in the door saying, hey, I want to be a thaumaturge. And she's like, okay, welcome. By the way, we have this secret order here that practices the essentially descendant of black magic. Don't tell anyone, but I'm telling you, random person who walked in the door.
Like, great. Thank you for trusting me, a stranger, with this immense secret.
Thaumaturge can be used to denote a spiritual person that works miracles. And there's nothing that is inherently religious about thaumaturgy in Final Fantasy XIV, but we can see here again that they conflate its practice with the priesthood of Nald'thal and use it in this very kind of formalized ceremonial manner.
Right.
To start our journey today, we're going to be heading over to the Thaumaturges Guild, which is located in the Ossuary in Ul'dah. We go to meet with the guild leaders right away. These are 5 Lalafell brothers named Kokobuki, Kokoboha, Koko Bezi, Koko Bani, and Koko Bigo.
Oh.
No.
No?
That's the hidden 7th brother.
Koko Puffy.
Is Koko Puffy. There are, though, whispers of a 6th brother.
Yes. And they usually go by their the latter half of their name and not like it's Buki, Boha. I don't know, to keep it simple.
The nickname for them is like Boha or Bigo.
They're very cute. They all have different face paint or other facial decorations.
They still look like a cult though. They're all wearing black robes with red hoods on them.
The 4 of them, yes. The guild master has a different costume entirely. He looks very, very edgy. He's got I think they all have these like metal claw gloves that give them these pointed claw-like looking hands. But Buki, the guildmaster, he's got an all-black cloak with metal accents. It's very, very dark nighty, actually.
These guys, they're all the guild leaders here, or guild masters, and there's like the senior one. Buki is the oldest brother and also the person who speaks for them if they ever need to make a statement. And they're all a bit too excited about the destructive aspects of thaumaturgy.
Yeah, there's less mention of Nald'thal and the worship thereof.
You mean no mention, period, from these guys?
Right. And more the worship of just pure destruction that they wield at their fingertips.
They got like the official business in front, which is the Temple of Nald'thal, and then in the back is the Thaumaturges Club where they blow stuff up with fire.
Gleefully blowing things up, yes.
Yep. So first off, we get our standard Go Kill Things quest. Nothing big. Good way to practice your 2 spells, your Fire 1 and Ice 1 spell. After that, we're tasked with learning the lessons in the Tome of Thaumaturgy, the Yawning Abyss, pinned by Zozo Maya.
Mm-hmm. The receptionist kind of puts the fear of God in you right away. And she's like, normally when we get a new recruit, we want them to read all 108 massive tomes of thaumaturgy, et cetera, et cetera. And she's like, but now we just kind of use practical exercises. I'm like, oh, great. Okay, cool. I'm so glad I've joined this modern version of the thaumaturge school of blowing shit up.
It's an easier entry requirement, but as we get implied heavily over the course of these quests, that many aspiring thaumaturges die in the deserts. Every time you go back from a quest, you're like, oh, you didn't die. Congratulations. So maybe there should be a bit of a higher entry exam to avoid all these casualties.
That's possible. But it also could be maybe people getting a little too ahead of themselves. Maybe putting a little too much faith in their fledgling abilities.
I'm going to put the blame here on the seniors in the room being the guild masters who do not
properly vet their students.
No. Like, you're interested? Sure. Here, have your stick, have your plank shield, your scrap wood shield. All right, go fighting. See if I see you.
I mean, at some point it becomes micromanaging.
The first section of this tome is the threat of intimacy, which is being taught by the socially adverse Koko Bigo. This is a nice pairing of fiction and game mechanics, as the tome talks about the powers of thaumaturgy, but the dangers of physical injuries. So the lesson, of course, is to stay as far away as possible with your spells and blow things up from a distance.
Right. You're a ranged DPS, fucking act like it.
So we're going to go and lure some vultures down with some meat, and we're going to blow them up from as far away as possible.
It seems kind of underhanded and shitty, but whatever. Who likes vultures? Nobody.
I think that's the MO of the guild, is to hide and attack from far away.
Oh, absolutely. No, they want you to practice that. Like, be a shitty little dick that hides behind trees and kills things.
And we do just that.
Yeah.
And as compensation for using this merchant's property, we have to go give him our blasted vulture meat.
Yes, we pay him in sorcery blasted bird flesh.
During this exchange, another Nald'thal shows up. This one's an alchemist. We infer from the conversation that he's somehow tied to the guildmasters, but he storms off in a huff after he learns that we're a new thaumaturge to the guild.
Even though he's angry, he's still really cute. Little blonde-haired, little ragamuffin. You just gotta chuckle, and it's really upsetting because he has a legitimate gripe. He was shafted in the I don't know, the birth lottery. He wasn't born with. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway.
Well, we find out that in 2 seconds, as when we go back to the guild, he stomps in again and starts yelling at all the guild masters.
You guys were supposed to teach me next, blah, 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 blah. And here's this jerk that I found over in the Silver Bazaar, traded more vulture meat to this guy, and on and on and on. And
then he breaks down crying and runs away.
And they try to placate him. They're like, Boosie, we don't want you to get hurt. We're just concerned that, we don't want you on the battlefield. You blah, blah, blah. Trying to placate him in the most patronizing way, honestly.
Yes. Well,
and that's upsetting. Like, just be honest with him. I mean, they've tried that. They tried everything. He won't listen. He's desperate to be a thaumaturge.
This fellow is Coco Boosie. He is the 6th brother of the guildmasters, and he has a very weak aether. So he's unable to wield thaumaturgical magics himself.
Yeah, he simply doesn't have the power within him. But he is a very, very talented alchemist. But he refuses to pay homage to those innate talents of his. And he desperately wants to be like his 4 bigger brothers. I mean, look, there's this like
5
sibling
brothers.
5. Sorry, I mean at least I don't know how active their parents were. Very apparently. I mean, do Nald'thal parents lay a clutch of eggs? Like, we don't know. I've seen one Nald'thal child in this entire game.
I think that those children are microscopic. It's why you can't see them.
I guess so. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Oh, anyway, Boosie, he runs off in tears.
I know. He's very emotional. Most of the time, actually, he's very emotional.
Yes. I mean, it's hard to want something that badly and not be able to do it.
Oh, yeah. You've got 5 older brothers that are super cool. You want to do what they do. And I think that's a universal feeling for a lot of people with, who are the youngest in a family.
But the guild is like, don't worry about him. He's fine, ultimately. We're trying with him. And they give us our next lesson, the next section from the Yawning Abyss, which is called The Threat of Paucity. We're on now to Coco Bonnie. And this section talks about the cycle of fire and ice magic and thaumaturgy. And of course, as we know from beforehand, when we're umbrally charged, our power is diminished, but so is the drain on our aether. And in an astral state, the reverse is true. We have great power, but of course we exhaust ourselves quickly. So we're going to go and practice now switching from fire to ice on 8 Fs. These are essentially giant salamanders that have an electrical charge. We find these guys in a river tunnel in central Thanalan. The task itself is pretty basic, but hopefully after killing 8 Fs in a row, you've had some experience with your ice and fire, as you're guaranteed to run dry after that big of a body count.
Yep, these big salamander-looking dudes. So you'll just fire, 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 ice, ice, fire, 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 ice, ice. And you'll watch your gauge go back and forth. Do you have transpose at this point?
Yes, you do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you're fire, 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 transpose, ice, ice, transpose,
yes.
Fire, fire. Okay.
As our second lesson here under this chapter, we're given another tutorial task. Some Amalja have raided a caravan carrying some MP restoring ether, different from aether.
So the Amalja hit an armored transport carrying a whole bunch of ether, and of course this makes the Thaumaturges really, or at least the guildmasters, nervous, because this is a major tool, and they're like, oh, the ether, yummy, yummy.
We also grab some blood from the Amalja too for Boosie.
Why not? Yeah.
When we get back to the guild, the Thaumaturges have called over Boosie.
Well, they send him a letter, or they reach out to him, like, hey, come over to the guild, we got a little something for you. So of course he runs over all excited. You've changed your minds? Are you gonna let me learn thaumaturgy now? This is amazing. And they're like, whoa, no, we have some Amalja blood for you for your experiments. Isn't that great? Like, you set him up for disappointment there, guys.
He knows his shortcomings, and he's in denial, is what it comes down to. They're doing their very best here to try and include him in their business and show that he can also be a team player without casting spells. but he refuses to accept anything but yes for an answer.
What he needs is a real life example of why he cannot wield this magic, because it'll literally kill him. Poor guy. So he gets his blood. Not that that's easy to come by. You're welcome, Boosie. But yeah, he's disappointed.
And we're on now to the next lesson. This one is the chapter, The Threat of Superiority. And this one is taught by Coco Bezzi.
As a consequence to them taking the ether that we rescued from the Amalja, instead of redistributing it to the merchants who paid for it, they just drink it all. And now the merchants have come knocking on the door saying, what the fuck, where are our goods? As they should, because that's kind of bullshit.
The lesson of the chapter here is to not engage foes that your magics can't handle. In this case, the example being...
like angry merchants.
Yeah, exactly. Even these guys will not stoop to blowing up their debt collectors.
So what do? We appeal to their emotions in like the worst, most manipulative way. I hate this quest so much. Well, so one, all three of them are lined up outside, right next to one another, and they're like rabbling outside the doors, and it's just you outside the doors facing these three angry guys. Well, one of them's a woman, but like you thieving piece of crap thaumaturge assholes. You think stealing from honest merchants is the way to, and they're really upset, and I think it's totally valid. But what they tell you to do, what your masters tell you to do, is just cry at them, appeal to their emotions. You can't use your words, just cry, and so
it works.
And it works, but it's hilarious.
This is right on brand for the guild, where they...
little cowards, really.
They are cowards, absolutely. So are the merchants, though. They'd rather do a Hank Hill move and, leave versus confront emotions.
Yes.
The next lesson from this chapter is having to go in the field and apply this to some real enemies here, not just merchants. We have to deal with our recent foes, the Alacrins. These guys have stolen a cursed relic known as Mormo's Urn. We're being put up against more than we can handle now, so true to the chapter, The Threat of Superiority, we're going to put some enemies to sleep rather than take them all on at once.
You have to use your sleep spell on this one. You can't try to murder your way through these guys.
Sleep is a weird spell here because you quickly no longer need to use it in most cases. The game is set up so that in dungeons, the mechanics are that you will fight groups of enemies and that you will not have to crowd control individual enemies and fight other ones one-on-one. You just, attack a whole group at once. However, it does come back around to being useful in some weird corner cases, such as Palace of the Dead solo runs, which will be a much later.
You have some very recent experience that speaks to that.
Yes.
So now we have to go find Mormo's urn. We cannot leave it in the hands of the Alacrins, obviously. So the Alacrins have it stored past the entrance to the Amalja camp. So you have to kind of sneak around some Amaljas. Hopefully you don't have to kill them. I was able to sneak around successfully, so you just be very careful. So once you're past that, you're going to see, the start of the instance. And in this instance, you're going to be faced with a series of Alacrins who are lying in wait for you. What you have to do is put them to sleep, move on to the next group, put them to sleep, move on to the next group, and do it quickly enough that you have time to get to the urn and go through the interaction of securing it, which takes a bit of time. And when I first did this, I had to do it over probably 4 or 5 times because I think what I did was I didn't realize that this was supposed to be practicing the use of sleep.
You should have read The Threat of Superiority more closely, Jen.
I guess so. I'm one of those assholes that shows up back at the guild dead. So anyway, I would have died 4 times over. I tried to engage them in battle. It's just simply not possible because they will respawn while you're engaging the next dude in battle. And it took me forever to just figure out, no. You literally just put them to sleep, move on. Put them to sleep, move on. And do it quickly enough that you can secure the urn. Anyway, so you do that. You secure the urn. And this is when Boosie pops up because he's been fucking following you. He thinks, okay, this person is pretty good. My brothers seem to think you're pretty cool. You were moments away from destroying this thing, which is the whole point. And he's like, hey, no, before you do it, can I do it? Can I do it, please?
Because he wants to prove himself to his brothers that he can party. And
by destroying an urn? I mean, yes, the dude is desperate. This isn't the way to do it, but Okay.
He also gives us his history, too. And we can infer most of it because we're paying attention. He took up alchemy in order to find a way to strengthen his own aether.
He's trying to create like a really potent mana amplification potion.
Yes.
And so far it hasn't worked on him because his levels are so pitifully low.
He doesn't ask us, he just does it. He grabs the urn and everything's fine. He was going to destroy it, but then the urn whispers to him.
Great.
It assures him that inside the urn is a nice void scent. Wouldn't he just consider opening it instead?
Like, no. I was put in here by evil void scent. I'm one of the good ones. Like, she sees right through his insecurities.
And of course, Mormo, the void scent in the urn, will do him a solid if he just opens the lid.
If you open the lid, you know what? I bet you want something real bad. If you let me out, I'll give you that thing. Knowing, of course, he is pining very much to have the level of power that his brothers have.
So Mormo finds the worst person, or in this case, I guess for her, the best person possible to pick up the urn. And he's like, sure, I'll do it.
And at no point, and this bothers me, I mean, obviously this has to happen for the story, but we just watch this whole thing go down. We're 3 feet away. We could kick it out of his hands. We could wrestle it from him. We could, probably use a couple of stern words and he would go running away crying.
Being generous here, we can assume this happens kind of mentally for him.
That's possible.
And then, when he actually grabs the lid, we do see our character going like, no, you don't do that.
Just kind of, we reach out like, fuck.
Yep.
And a little void scent colored mote enters his mouth, and it's an immediate change.
Purple being the color of void scent, of
Correct.
course.
Yeah, the color of evil. Suddenly he's kind of overwhelmed with this confidence that he didn't have before. I'm like, okay, cool, he's possessed. He's like, well, I guess, we're supposed to destroy this urn, right? And he throws it over the cliff. Like, well, fuck, that was like the only thing that could contain Mormo and her power.
I think that the urn at that point was probably useless.
If you could get it back into her, or get her back into it, there was a lot of research and work that went into creating this urn to make sure that her ether and her power could be just gradually sucked away from her over the eons. And without that urn now, without this vessel to capture her and suck away all of her power, these things don't grow on trees. You can't just like order up another Mormo urn. Because we have to figure out how to separate these two entities, Mormo from Boosie, without losing Boosie.
We don't, because we're absolutely dumb as shit, and we go, job's done, and go back to the guild. To be more kind, our characters are not genre aware enough to realize what's happened here.
Correct. I mean, it's not like we're that intimately acquainted with Boosie as well and all of his neuroses. So we all go back, and we're none the wiser, really.
Nope. We're like, job's done, and the guild master's like, great, see you later. We come back in a few levels. When we return to the guild, Kokobuki tells us about a mage slayer that's been killing mages in Ul'dah and draining their etheric energy. And he is relieved.
Suspicious.
He seems to be somewhat happy that we're not dead, but he probably could care less as well. He's used to that they're...
Buki?
Yeah.
I think I would hope that Buki cares more about us than...
I feel like we've seen so many dead recruits that...
I suppose. This is just a defensive mechanism, really. Don't get attached. Don't
and
give
they're
them
all
names.
about running away,
Also, this the chapter of the book that we're learning this time is Thread of Perplexity, just for the record.
This is the final chapter of the Yawning Abyss, and it's time to go see Koko Boha to learn this lesson.
And Boha is a big fan of alliteration. He uses it copiously.
Yes.
And it is annoying.
And actually, the first Lala that we talked to, the one who's afraid of intimacy,
Bigo.
They cringe, like it says cringe after hearing Boha's alliteration. Mm-hmm. So it's not just Eugen, they also cringe at each other.
Great, yeah, knock it off.
Anyway, this chapter is a warning to the Thaumaturge about being threatened by multiple foes. It's kind of similar thematically speaking to the last chapter, but whatever. The main lesson here for us, though, is to put someone tougher than ourselves between us and danger if we're confronted by more than we can handle.
Right. Get yourself a tank.
And this time, though, Boosie rolls up, the alchemist, and offers to team up with us on this lesson. And despite being initially shot down, he says he's hired a fighter to back him up. So the guild masters are like, okay, sure. If you have a fighter here, then sure, that checks out.
The suggestion is to they want you to basically read, study up on this. And then Boosie walks in and says, how about a practical examination in the real world? I've got a really strong, fresh lead on this Mage Slayer shit. And I'm hoping that maybe, your student here could help me with it. And they're like, that's really fucking dangerous. Also, it's you. You're not going to be able to protect her or vice versa. And he's like, yeah, no. I hired a stalwart swordsman to help. This all checks out. I'm like, okay, great. Note that these are the four brothers. Buki isn't in on this conversation. Buki walks up and he kind of looks after us leaving the temple and goes, was that Boosie? Something seemed off. Like he didn't recognize the speech. So, okay, all right, Spidey's sense is tingling.
Either way, though, we are heedless and we head out to go and track down these killings with Boosie and this stalwart swordsman. One
of the brothers was like, maybe if you got yourself a stalwart swordsman, and then we go out into the instance, and that's literally the name the game is given him.
Yep.
So we're at Nofik as well.
Yes, that's in Western Thanalan. It is the river basin for the river that runs.
It's the river that runs through it.
It's the river that runs through Western Thanalan.
Okay, fine. But it's very pretty down there. Anyway, so Boosie's down there with his guy, and he's like, all right, we found some Thaumaturge corpses over there in the river. If you can examine those corpses and get some evidence, then, we got a stew going. I'm like, great. Okay. So we go, we collect some trinkets from each corpse. We head back. We hand them over to Boosie. And he's like, great. This is really great. Maybe you should... What is the next thing that he has us do? So we get the shit from the corpses. It's like a book, a staff, and
it's like a amulet or like a bracelet.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's thaumaturge gear.
Yeah. And they're like covered in blood, etc. Like, oh, okay, this is some good evidence. Boosie being like very much a leadership role, being very bossy, and
he tells us to go back and to go investigate again, saying that we're bound to draw the attacker in. And we do so. And
yes, he wants this to be used as bait. And we have to go and wait out. Obviously, the Mage Slayer must be around here, right? Because these are fresh corpses. So I bet this Mage Slayer is going to be hugely attracted to the immense etheric energy coming off of your body.
And so we get attacked by imps now as we go back. These are the most minor of the minor void sent.
Yeah.
Just like big-headed, flying purple guys.
So there's a big one, and you start fighting the big guy, and then the swordsman comes up and starts fighting with you. But then a couple of ads show up, 2 more smaller imps, and the swordsman says something like, I can't take all of these guys at once. You're going to need to put one of them to sleep. Put the big guy to sleep. Like, here we go with the sleep again. So I missed that dialogue the first time I did this, even just like the other day for this recording. I totally missed that dialogue. I was fighting, and then suddenly the swordsman died because I didn't put anybody to sleep, and then I had to do the instance over.
So we kill the imps if we read the text and we apply our sleep spell correctly.
What the fuck, man?
The swordsman beats us back to Boosie, gets paid, and heads out.
Yeah,
and then
I'm glad because he was a nice guy. I didn't want Boosie, and I forgot. I'm like, does Boosie fuck with this guy? Does he kill him when he goes back to not pay him or whatever?
I mean, he could have. We don't know for sure.
He could have,
but the swordsman is not rich in either.
He's fine. He got paid. He's on to his next job.
And then Boosie's like, I think you missed an imp. I saw one flying away into that.
Did you not see the 4th imp? He went over there. And this whole time, and I remember this the first time I did it. Like, why are we going through these motions? We're gonna get murdered. We're gonna get shanked. And that's exactly what happens. We go into this little cave where this non-existent imp has flown, and we're just like fucking idiots. We're like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Let me just go into this dark hole, bend over, look with my back facing the opening, and then the camera work shows a very low to the ground point of view, kind of walking up slowly, sneaking up on you, and it's Boosie obviously with this terrible grin on his face, and he throws an enormous dagger at your back. As it's slicing its way through the air, it is knocked out by a giant fireball. And Buki is there. And he puts his staff on his back. It's actually like the most impressive thing he's ever done. And you're shocked. Oh my God, I almost died. And that's then the cat's out of the bag at that point. Mormo makes it very aware that she has possessed Boosie.
He lights up full of purple aether, and then he does like a creepy gravity reversal onto the ceiling of the cave.
Paranormal activity bullshit.
Yep.
And he's just crawling around. And he's like, well, it looks like what you have done here, Buki, is be the total coward. What you should have done is knocked me down. You should have cut me down, not the dagger out of the air, because you're so afraid of killing your brother. You suck. And then he disappears. He
melts into the stone itself.
He's like sucked into the stone. Very impressive. Whatever. Now Buki's like, well, this is true. I went against everything I've ever been taught about thaumaturgy, and how to engage in battle. I should have cut him down when they had a chance. There was no risk. He didn't know I was there. So now he's full of conflict.
The scholars that told us about the urn in the first place may have a solution. So we head out now to Eastern Thanalan to go interrogate them.
Yeah, we leave Buki to his musings, to wrestle with this conflict of faith, so to speak. However, yes, there are some scholars that have been working, the guys who found the urn. They've been putting together a tome about Mormo and maybe possibly how to deal with her. So, yeah, we go out to Camp Drybone and look for these scholars and gather a couple of their sheafs of paper with their notes, and to strategize on how we can get Mormo out and murdered and Boosie back to us alive and well.
And we do learn some things from these tomes. We have our facts confirmed from last time about Void Scent. Mormo is too powerful a Void Scent to travel bodily into our realm, so she must project her spirit through whatever rift she came through.
Mm-hmm.
And her reign of terror dates back to when Sildee still stood.
Say that 5 times fast. No, we can't.
She hunted the denizens of that city until she was tricked into touching an urn, where she became trapped until just recently.
Sucker.
Her spirit was supposed to weaken over the years, and then it could be dissipated by shattering the urn and shattering her spirit alongside it. Mm-hmm. However, Boosie opened the urn instead, which released her spirit the incorrect way, and now she's back, though still weakened from her long containment.
Also, she did possess a body that has, like, no really etheric energy to speak of.
Yes.
So she is, it's good and bad, because she can't just go around doing what she wants to do, but that does mean she has to go around killing a bunch of thaumaturges to suck in their energy before she can do what she wants.
Yep.
So now we've got a pile of corpses. That's a bummer. Anyway.
We have a guild meeting with the brothers, and everyone but Buki just wants to kill Boosie and Mormo. They're like, thaumaturgy teaches us to blast our foes and to, take no chances with ourselves, so we should just kill him. It sucks, but too bad.
Yeah, it's just kind of a lazy, I don't know, like lazy, but more of like a complacent falling back on their teachings. Again, this is the cowardly route instead of trying to put the work in to figure out how we could do this. And in order to do what they want to do, somebody does have to kind of put their life on the line in order to do it, which again goes against everything they've ever been taught. That's like the last thing you ever want to do. Is risk yourself in these situations. But that's what we gotta do.
Buki, the senior brother, actually decides to deny the teachings of thaumaturgy and to put himself on the line for a chance of saving their brother. So he's like, I am rich in aether. I'll offer myself to her.
She couldn't possibly resist this juicy bounty of ether that is me.
Yep. So the plan is to draw her out with Buki's aether and then to attack her when she is exposed. So to prepare for this confrontation, we are told about the secret chapter of the Yawning Abyss. This is a lesson even the guild masters have not undertaken. So we head out to the temple to Tal in Eastern Thanalan.
It's Tal's Respite.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this essentially is a cave, like a remote cave that has a big statue to Tal with like a giant curved sword on it.
So it's just a smaller, more remote space of worship for Tal.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. You'll have a couple of scenarios in this cave as a thaumaturge / black mage. But the brothers are all there, and what they have done is they will be summoning Void Scent, one after the other, basically test your mettle, and try to put into practice this new strat of going on the offensive as the Thaumaturge, and fully embracing the power, the explosions, the blizzards, the crash of lightning and thunder, instead of pitifully running away and hiding. Brave.
So this is really more of a secret final exam versus a secret chapter. And it starts with just like demonic bats, and then it goes on to being these.
And suddenly you're gonna have, that's Pork Chop. He wants to be on the podcast.
And so it goes on.
Yeah, eventually there's just like there are multiple mobs, and you have to deal with multiple instead of just one after another after another.
Right, but the next creatures that come out are these like slug type things. Mm-hmm. And then finally comes the Lord of Flies.
The big guy. The big, he looks like just like a big bee.
Children, the real Void Scent.
The what?
Lord of the Flies. Have you not read that book?
Oh, I've absolutely read it.
Here's
what are
me
you
referencing.
talking about?
I'm talking about Lord of the Flies, the classic book where there are children on an island that turn upon one another and create this terrible, violent society.
Right. It's society at its worst. So how does that relate to the giant bug that we get? It's just you're just calling it Lord of the Flies.
It is called that.
Is it really?
Yes.
I totally missed that. Okay. Well, that's cute, devs.
You read the text that they're calling out to you.
I'm bad at that.
I know. That's why the joke failed.
I'm sorry.
Take that, Jen.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, this final Void Scent comes out. It's essentially like a giant, ugly, like bug, flying bug creature.
Yeah, it's pretty tanky.
We're, of course, victorious.
Of course.
In the end. And after completing the trial, we get word that Mormo has been active in Vesper Bay. The guildmasters are all energized and psyched up by our performance.
Yeah.
Here.
So, our performance convinces them to walk back that traditional strat of eliminating risk and only engaging when victory is absolutely assured, and finally just becoming, just fully embrace your power and get in there. Back
to Vesper Bay now, which is in Western Thanalan. We have to go ask around for a bit, and we hear that Mormo has lured some adventurers up north to presumably feed upon. So we follow the trail, and we arrive in another dark cave. This one is full of ankle deep or probably waist deep for Lalas, full of water. We see that Mormo is suspending a Thaumaturge in the air, sucking her dry of
juice,
aether.
Yeah. It's actually pretty off-putting, this image. It's Boosie and his little fingers, and this Thaumaturge who is just like fully scorpioned out in midair, getting her essence sucked
fully
out.
Scorpioned out?
Scorpioned out. You know that term?
Nope.
Like if you've got a lot of forward momentum and you fall on your face, the momentum follows your body through, and then your legs kind of curl up behind you like a scorpion tail. That's what that means. So that's just the shape of her body.
Understood.
Okay.
Buki steps up and he's like, you want some of this here, some
of
this sweet juice.
Yeah, and he smacks his ass a couple of times.
And Mormo's like, yeah, sure. She drops the Thaumaturge that she was draining and turns to Buki instead and sucks him absolutely dry. This gives her enough energy to form a corporeal body. So she appears as a giant, bat-winged succubus,
she's finally powerful enough
lady
to escape Boosie's physical form. So Boosie collapses, and out comes this goth queen, gray skin, greasy black hair, and these tattered black robes fluttering behind her.
And the standing guildmasters come up behind us, and they're very terrified and stuttering.
They're shaking in their little boots.
But they're still stalwart, and they back us up.
Yep.
So we join battle with Mormo, and it's us plus the 4 guildmasters taking on this Void Scent. It's a pretty long and tough fight here.
It is a long fight, yeah.
And then she calls in reinforcements, so she summons skeletons up from the water as well later on.
So now you get to use your AoEs that you've been given. So you've got to pull shit out, the whole bag of skills. You're going to have to use all of it.
And we, of course, do. Of course. And at long last, she's defeated. And the guildmasters rush over to Boosie the alchemist, and he's recovering. He's okay, though.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, the senior brother, Buki, he's in worse shape.
He's still unconscious. Yeah.
But Busi pulls out a vial of this experimental concoction he's been working on.
The mana amplifying elixir. So basically they're having to like literally what they need to do is like jumpstart the car that is Buki. He doesn't have enough power in himself to reanimate, so they've got to jumpstart him with this mana amplifying elixir that, holy shit, the alchemist genius brother Busi has made. He pours it down Buki's throat and it fucking works. And everybody's like, oh my god, that was amazing. Holy shit, Busi, you saved us all. See, like, this is... And I think that finally got the message across that this is how he can contribute to Thaumaturgy. This is how he can contribute to his family in a way that he actually saw real world results. He saved his brother's life.
It's true.
Yeah. So continue on your alchemical path there, bro.
And we have become a full-fledged thaumaturge at that point. The
Huzzah.
end. That's the quest.
We did it. We quested.
What do you think, Jen?
I have a special place in my heart for the thaumaturge job.
Let's put aside your rose-colored, first-timer glasses here.
I think it informs my opinion. It was my first job ever.
Gladiator was my first job ever, and I hate that quest.
Well,
I don't hate the quest.
That's fair.
I mean, I hate the paladin quest to come, but more on that later.
Okay.
Go on.
See, it colors your past. Like without the paladin quest, you might have a different opinion about the gladiator quest. So you see how that goes? You see what I'm working with here? But no, I loved it, and obviously having 5 guild masters is very unique. It doesn't happen anywhere else.
5 is better than 1, of course.
Of course, yes. And I love the fact that they have been forced to challenge the rote teachings of thaumaturgy when actually faced with something that affects them directly with a member of their family. It's a bummer that it took that aggressive of a situation to get them to kind of maybe look back. Maybe this strategy isn't the best, but that's going to happen. You're taught what you're taught. They're indoctrinated, but they do have the awareness and the sense to step back and say, "Hey, we can do this better, and we can, and we will." And I love that. And thaumaturgy, it's very cool. It's very like visually beautiful with the fire and the ice and the lightning. You feel, I don't know, it's just, there's something very, very satisfying about it. The graphics of these spells are super cool. It's very complicated, but at the same time, I think it's I thought it was super fun. I liked it.
I think this is the ideal class quest for a first time class.
Wow.
It's got it all. It has a coherent, it's got an exciting and succinct plot. There are no steps here that don't serve to advance the story. There's no like go kill things for a level and then come back in 5 levels and we'll continue the story here. Everything is part of the arc that takes place. It integrates the mechanics of the story together. You learn about the different parts of being this class while you're going through the story as well. And also it's about being a thaumaturge. It's not about some other bullshit.
Right.
Like Gladiator is.
Gladiator.
So I really think this brings it all together into one great quest.
Totally agree. And even the one quest that is a little errand boy, like a little fetch questy, it still speaks to their behavior as thaumaturges and basically being cowards and hiding behind their tomes.
Yep.
So, good job. Good job, everybody.
The one thing missing, unfortunately, was details on the political influence of the Sacrarium in Nald'thal.
Yeah, not a whisper of that. And apparently, the thaumaturges, as we learned in the MSQ, apparently are ripe for bribery.
Well, here's what I got so far. I was able to turn up in the Encyclopedia Eorzea mentions about the priesthood of Nald'thal who have a hand in drafting laws in Ul'dah. So, this is quite a bit of inference here, but I think that, the church obviously is a big part of Ul'dah, being life, death, and commerce in the city. And you can easily imagine that they had the ear of several politicians and rich individuals in the syndicate. So presumably, if you bribe the Sacrarium, they in turn will lean on some political figures here However, as we've seen, the actual thaumaturges and the priesthood are not one the same necessarily.
Right, yeah.
You've got like the back of house cool kids club where they blow stuff up, and they've got the front of house who is the priesthood. And you don't see the thaumaturges when you come into the sacrarium, the ossuary,
Right.
the whole complex. You see the big statue of Nald'thal, you see the priests first, and I think that is the more politically motivated group. And
That
the
makes
thaumaturges, they do more of like the ceremonial rites with their corpse cleansing, and they blow stuff up and have a good time doing so. But I don't think that our friends in the guild are the ones taking bribes and
Agreed.
moving minds.
Yeah. I simply don't think they have that in their skill set in order to manage the intricacies of political fuckery. So that all checks out.
Well, great.
Ah.
Next time, we'll be resuming our Ul'dah main story quest, and we'll be finishing up the Ul'dah segment of the MSQ for characters who begin in that starting city.
And that's the end of episode 4 of Pod Return to the Waking Sands. Thank you guys so much for listening. Subscribe if you want to hear more. We're still having a great time doing this, and we will catch you next week.